Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter Rise, and today we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch Special Edition, which is going to be themed around Monster Hunter Rise. So I actually received the press release earlier this morning, and I've been meaning to report on this for a while, but unfortunately today is one of those days that nothing really went right. I had some errands that I had to run. I had a lot of technical difficulties with the Third Fleet podcast for some strange reason, like everything just decided to explode on my computer. But do not fear, all of that is fixed, and probably by the time this video is recorded, you will either be watching or will have already watched the Third Fleet podcast, at which point you might even be wondering, why didn't Rurikhan and Gaijin talk about the new Nintendo Switch Special Edition and what that means in regards to the game? Or why didn't they talk about, Ichinose's Twitter statement where he talked about there's not going to be any more hot drinks? And it's like, the hot drinks thing, we'll talk about that later. But the reason we didn't talk about the new Nintendo Switch is because when we recorded this week's edition of the Third Fleet podcast, this had not yet been announced. For those of you guys that are not aware, we record the Third Fleet podcast on Tuesdays, late night my time in Portugal. So like 11 p.m. Portuguese time, which is like 8 a.m. Japanese time or something like that. Because, my schedule and Gaijin's are pretty crazy. So we usually record these on Tuesdays, and it takes me a while to edit, process, do all of that stuff because it's still like a 3-hour video, and I still do a little bit of audio touch-ups here and there. So that takes its time. But anyway, let's start by talking about just like the visual look of the console, because that's really the only thing that changes. There's no other change in the console itself. I mean, I'm going to assume that this is the second revision of the Switch, or who knows if there have been more revisions at this point, but the one that I seem to remember is that there was a second revision of the Switch which improved the battery lifetime a little bit. My Switch is still one of the old ones. I never really traded it in. So this might actually be something that I might end up picking up. Like, I'm really trying to contain myself and not pick it up because I know that in reality I don't really need it. But just looking at, the visual aspect of like the Joy-Cons, which I think look really cool with the Kimura symbols on them and the little golden arrows mixed in with the regular black arrows, I think it looks really nice. It's kind of like a subtle effect to them. And they also have a couple of like symbols in the back. I think that the Joy-Cons look really appealing personally. I think the dock also looks really, really nice with like the golden Magnamalo thing and the symbols on it. And the golden Magnamalo like blight kind of like spread out in golden on the other side. I kind of like the minimalistic look that they've given to it, which is like it still maintains like the usual aesthetic of the Switch. With the Switch, it's like the console in and of itself is a fairly simple console. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I really even like about just like the Switch UI that I've talked about at times is just how simple it is. It doesn't have any blocks of advertisements or trying to get you to buy something or whatever. It's like, no, here's your games, here's your settings, boom, go. Like, that's something that I really appreciate about the minimalistic choices when it comes to the Switch. I appreciate that it's a very simple device. You just pick it up and go. It's super easy to use. Like, I really like that. So I feel like this particular design with, the inspiration in Monster Hunter Rise that they've applied onto the Switch itself, I think it looks really, really, really nice. Now, on the back of the Switch, there's also like these almost like the wings that you have on the Kimura set of your Hunter, which probably, if I've shown some gameplay in this video from the demo of Rise, you will instantly recognize like the two wings almost that your character has in the back. It's like a cloak, but it's like split in two. They have that on the back of the Switch unit itself, and I think it looks nice. Overall, like, I just really like the look of it, which is one of the reasons why I personally want to get it, but I still recognize, it is very much so a needless expense. But I am also very curious, how do you guys feel about it? Now, I did post that on my community tab to kind of like give you guys a look at the console the second that I received the press release. A lot of you guys are kind of like on the same boat as me. You're like, I don't really need this. But at the same time, I really, really want it. So that's kind of like where we stand. But the console itself is not the only thing that released. They also released a Pro controller for Monster Hunter Rise. And that is actually one of the things that I might end up having to pick up, because as you guys know, I've had a lot of problems with my base Pro controller that I've gotten for my Switch. I've had issues with the analogs not working right, the D-pad not working right, some of the like shoulder buttons not working right. I'm also been getting some issues with delays in like input delays when it comes to Monster Hunter Rise. So I'm not particularly happy about my Pro controller, but whenever I talk to people about it, I usually appear to be in the very small minority of people that have had problems with the Pro controller. So this might actually be one of the things that pushes me to get another one and just see if I, if this one's better than the one that I have, because like the one that I have has been very disappointing. But the design on it also looks really nice. You got the Magnum Allo thing, very much like you have on the Switch dock in gold, and you also have like the little golden arrows and the black arrows on the left analog stick. And overall, in terms of feel, I do like the feel of the Switch Pro controller. So it's like I would like to have one that is actually good, unlike the one that I have that's given me a lot of issues. So this might be something that I will end up getting. The console, on the other hand, I'm still extremely hesitant on. Now, when it comes to price, I don't think there's been any official pricing in the West. Like, there was some yen pricing for Japan, which was like 38,000 something. But basically, I saw on the website, they were like, this is about $370. So I wouldn't be surprised if like the pricing on this thing is going to be like $399, either $350 or $399. That's what I would expect, probably with the 1-to-1 conversion rate to Europe. So either $350 bones in Europe or $399. But I think it'll probably be end up being $399, because ultimately this also includes the deluxe version of Monster Hunter Rise with it. So I think the price tag of $399 does maybe make a little bit of sense, even though, again, I know that this is going to be a lot more than people are willing to pay for a Switch. And this also brings up another topic that I want to talk about, which is in regards to a potential Switch Pro eventually. But it's like, it looks really good, basically, is what I'm saying. You don't need it. You probably shouldn't get it. If you can't afford it, you should probably just like get a cheaper one or something if you're struggling. But like, good God, I really wish I could get one. But yeah, so I think probably the price tag is going to be around $399. Now, one of the things that I just mentioned is that this is going to include Monster Hunter Rise with the console itself, but it is not going to be a physical version. It is going to be a download code, and it is going to be for the digital deluxe edition of Monster Hunter Rise, which comes with a bunch of like bonus stuff like gestures, layered armor, both for yourself and your Palico and your Palamute, and all of that stuff. And I gotta be honest, that's actually something that bummed me out, which is the fact that, it's a digital edition. It's almost like, okay, so you have this collector's item over here, which is what I would consider this console to be, right? You have like the custom dock, you have the custom Switch console, the custom Joy-Cons, and even the custom Pro controller. I would consider these to be essentially collector's items. And at the same time, you're like, oh, here's the digital edition of the game. At least have like the physical edition of the game included. Because like, if someone is a collector to the point where they like collecting these things, I think it should be fairly obvious that they would also prefer to have like the physical version of the game. At least that's the way that I look at it. But you guys can tell me in the comment sections, how do you feel about that stuff? But I think one of the most important things that this brings up, at least in my opinion, is that this means that we will most likely not see a Nintendo Switch Pro this year. At least I think it would be pretty brazen of Nintendo to not only not announce a Switch Pro ahead of Monster Hunter Rise, to then actually announce a special edition Nintendo Switch that is gonna be releasing at the same day as Monster Hunter Rise, and then later down the line have the gall to just be like, oh, by the way, we're also releasing a new version of the console. Like, I think there is no way that we get like a special edition of a Nintendo Switch and a Switch Pro in the same year. I don't think that makes any sense. I think that would be something Like, I think that would be very disrespectful towards your customer base, but who knows, you know? I'm not gonna be here and be like, oh yeah, they're definitely not gonna do it. But like, if I was a betting man, I would bet against it. I'd say like, nah, it'd probably be a really bad idea to release a Nintendo Switch Pro at this point. However, one of the things that I saw be thrown around when I mentioned this on Twitter that probably we're not going to be getting a Switch Pro this year was that some people were hypothesizing on the possibility of the Switch Pro essentially being a dock and not necessarily a new Switch unit. Now, I'm not sure if that is something that is possible with the technology that is currently in the Switch. If you can just like, oh, I'll just put this thing on this special new dock, which is the Switch Pro, and it automatically becomes a lot more powerful and capable of outputting 4K resolution at 60 FPS. I don't think the Switch is ever going to do 4K resolution, let alone 4K resolution at 60 FPS. It's just too much computing power. But you know, if they potentially have like a dock that could at least push you to be able to play most of your games at 60 FPS and call that a Switch Pro, and maybe even just have like native 1080p at 60 FPS on most of the games, like I don't need the 4K. If I can get 60 FPS out of my Switch with like a Switch Pro dock of some kind, like I think that would be pretty cool. But I think that all of the actual heavy lifting would have to be done by the dock itself, because I don't think you're going to be pushing anything more out of that console in terms of like hardware power, in terms of performance, in terms of all of that stuff. I think the Switch is pretty much like stretched to its limits when it comes to its capabilities right now with some of the games that are coming out on it. And like, you can instantly see that if you play something like, for instance, Age of Calamity, where there's just like tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of monsters everywhere you look at, because it's basically a Mushu game, and you can see that the performance takes massive hits. Now, is it unplayable? No, but the console definitely struggles with that stuff. So I don't think you're going to be stretching the power of the Switch any more than people have already tried stretching it. So the heavy lifting would have to be done by the dock itself. And I don't know whether or not that is going to be something that is going to be possible, but if it is, it would be something that would be pretty damn exciting as far as I'm concerned. Like, imagine just you put down your Switch, the thing loads your saves, like it loads all of the games that are in there, everything just like works seamlessly, and you just have like, you know, a better experience when you're on the flat screen, and you know, then you take it out and you can still play your Switch normally. I think that'd be pretty cool. But whether or not that is a possibility, I don't know. But definitely at this point, if it's still coming out in 2021, I think it being a dock is the only way of doing it. Like, I don't think there's any way that Nintendo is releasing a Switch Pro, but I could be wrong, and I will be very curious to know what you guys think about that in the comment section down below. Like I mentioned, me and Gaijin did not know about this. That's why this is not mentioned on episode 8 of the Third Fleet podcast. We'll talk about it briefly in the next episode, as well as a lot more topics that I have to talk with him about. But yeah, as a matter of fact, I think the next episode is going to be very special. I think it's going to be very special. I think you guys will want to tune in to the next episode for sure. You should also tune into this one. So if you've missed it, it's already on the channel. But I have another video in the works right now for a different game that I hope you guys will check out as well. It's going to be a video talking about Outriders. But even though I had planned on putting out that video potentially today, that's not going to be a thing because I'm already super late as it is. So we will take care of that one tomorrow. But hopefully you guys are excited. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button. If you did not enjoy this video, hit the dislike button, because feedback is important. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.